Our country needs change. Things are getting worse. Our children, our grandchildren, and those to come cannot afford to buy homes. Food is growing more expensive day over day. Our people are being taxed greater than ever with nothing to show for it. We are seeing everything grow more expensive and our incomes not matching the cost of living. Our society has wild ideas that are tearing us apart at the seam, causing division amongst people like we have never seen before, turning us on each other, making us fight amongst each other, as well as being too distracted with drinking and game to stand united. Come today to propose founding of a new political party, a party built and run by those that have first-hand experience, not the career politicians, but the workers, the business owners, the doctors, the first responders, and those that are the boots on the ground that see what is wrong and what needs to be fixed. Those that can tell us what needs to be changed to fix things. I want to see a brighter future for our children and grandchildren, brighter future for everyone within this country and any other country willing to follow this same lead. But change like this can't happen gradually. It needs to be fast. A grand and vast reevaluation of how we run our country, changing our society in a dramatic restructure, replacing those in power with people that want to make this country great, make this country strong. People willing to make a difference and not stand by idly and allow terrible choices to be made that harm the people of this country. A reformation of our government built by those that have the best interests of its people first. One of the first things I would propose is to nationalize our resources. Oil, gold, silver, iron, lumber, lithium, fishing, fresh drinkable water, and many other that we have on this land. We have great wealth upon these lands, greater than most nations, yet we stifle it. We tax it. There's red tape all the way from the bottom, all the way to the point that it leaves this country or is used by ourselves. It ups the pricing and it creates inflation. We allow other countries to take the profits of this country, allow other countries to control these resources that should be Canadian. I would free all the taxations and red tape. I would nationalize control of the industry so that they must all remain 100% Canadian run, Canadian owned, and no dollar leaves this country. That those resources are sold to help pay for our country and pay for the things that we need, to pay down our debt, to pay for the medical that we need, our doctors, our nurses, our frontline, pay for our military, our roads. There's a huge amount of wealth that can be made from our industry, but we don't allow our industry to run. We don't allow it to grow and make money. We need to change that. We need to make it profitable once again. Taxation. I would change that on very many levels. For one, payroll tax on business. This is unnecessary. It penalizes a business for giving their staff a raise. A business should be encouraged to be able to pay their staff more. Why should you penalize a business for paying you more? That's the dumbest thing ever. You should not be penalized for getting a raise. Or I should say your business should not be penalized for giving you a raise. This tax should not exist and it should be abolished. The land you live on, property taxes. Once you own it, you should not have to pay taxes on it again. The tax should be paid once and only once, not annually on something that you will continue to own and live upon. If it is your primary residence, I would make sure that it is tax exempt indefinitely as long as you're living there. Secondary and additional residences, fine. They can still be taxed because it's not your primary residence. It's where you're living that matters. We don't have a death tax per se, but when someone does pass away, everything they own and the value of it all is taxed. It's kind of a workaround to a death tax. That needs to be abolished. If your family has something to pass down to their children, it should just be passed down clear and free, no taxes on any of it at any point in stage. The only thing that should ever be considered is if a debt needs to be paid for something. This would allow properties and homes to be passed down to the next generation. So you could own your family home without being penalized owing money towards it, or owing money towards debts that were created. It would allow for future generations to carry over that same home and have those same memories that you would have grown up with. I would also do additional incentives for families. Families that are married with 3 or more children, I would remove all income tax on the whole family. As long as you're married with those 3 kids, income tax is gone. If you have 2 kids, I would have a reduced income tax, half of what the standard would be. And thinking of that as a standard, the standard tax rate would be normalized across all brackets, one flat percent. None of this wild tiered points where the more you make, the more you get taxed. It'll be a flat tax across the board. Everyone says an equal percentage. I would give additional benefits for veterans. Veterans are the ones that protect our country, our way of life. They're the ones that put their lives on the line to make sure that our country has a future. After 15 years in service, I would make sure they are tax exempted and protect them from all those types of things. Inevitably, in the end, once our national debts are paid, the goal will be to eliminate all income tax anyways. But certain people should benefit immediately, like our first responders, our doctors, our nurses, our police, our firefighters. They should be tax exempted to encourage them to continue to serve the people of this country. I would also put an income cap on government officials. A government official would be capped at being paid no more than double the riding they represent. So if the average income of where they represent is 50,000, they're capped at 100,000. Anything beyond that is taxed. If they want additional income, they can get another job like everybody else. But if they're making double what their riding is, they're already doing plenty well enough and shouldn't need to. Because the members of government, their job and their purpose should be to make it sure that everybody is doing better. Not just them, not lining their pockets with policies and benefiting the businesses they work for, but making sure that the people they represent are doing better so that they can do better. It becomes a tiered system that if you want to make more, everybody else has to make more. Yes, you'll still make more than them, but the more they make, the more you make. It's very simple. I would also block any of these huge amounts of money that we are sending out to foreign countries. It is absolutely insane. This money should be spent on our people. The tax money that our people are paying should be spent on the people of this country, not on people that are in foreign countries. If we decide to do foreign aid, it should be boots on the ground, supplies in hand, not using our tax money like a donation bin, especially when we don't even have extra money. We're just handing them more debt from us. We should not be using our debt as a giveaway. Additionally, I would reevaluate the way that corporations are paid out, because executives and the people at the top, yes, they deserve to be paid more because they are doing a lot of extra work, but their wages should also be normalized versus the people under them. We would look at a tiered structure that caps them based off of the average wages of the company, so that someone's not getting a $10 million bonus when the people at the bottom are working for minimum wage and barely getting by. Those kind of things would have to be changed and protected so that the businesses are encouraged to help everybody do better, not just line the pockets at the top. If people have more money in their pocket, people will spend more money, because they have more money. It feeds into businesses, it feeds into the economy. So instead of putting all the money in one person's pocket, we need to look at how to balance that out better. I would get rid of the incentives not to work. No more free money, no more living off of taxpayer money and having a free ride. Don't care who you are or where you came from, that would need to end. The exceptions obviously would be people that are incapable of working because of health or medical reasons. Obviously, that would be perfectly fine. People that are just ignorant to wanting to work and just want to take advantage of a tax system, job placement and job training. And if you don't not happy with the one you're at, you go right back into job placement and job training somewhere new until we find something you're happy with. Even if it ends up being scrubbing toilets in a mall, doesn't matter. We will find something. The contribution to society should be shared, not being a drain on society that everybody else is paying for. Would reopen the mental health institutions so that those people that cannot care for themselves, that are left out on the street because there was no place for them to go, they would have the care they need and they would be put back into these facilities. But we would structure them differently as a care facility that makes sure that their needs are taken care of. And the ones that are violent are definitely not on the street where they can harm themselves or other people and be in the places that they belong. And if their mental health is non-issue, then we can put them into a work camp, get them trained, get them job placement, reintroduce them into society, help them allocate housing. Relationships need to be encouraged. We've had too much disparity in the relationships that occurred in this country. In the event of a divorce, I would say that both sides should be entitled to anything they had before the marriage, that only the things that were acquired during the marriage should be split. No spousal support, no child support. Kids would be an automatic 50-50 unless obvious circumstances like an unfit parent for violence or something like that come to the mix, in which the fit parent would get automatic custody in those cases. But if you are choosing to be a single parent and not to be with the other parent, then you're not entitled to anything. Just like women can opt out of being a mother, everyone else can opt out as well. You don't have to be forced into a situation because of one person's choice. It was both people's choices in the first place, and actions have consequences. And now you'll have to live with them. I don't believe that society should have to pay for it, and I don't believe that the other person should have to be involved in something they don't want to be a part of. You choose a bad partner, that's your fault. You deal with it. And if you need to be able to work, job placements, job training, we'll figure it out. We'll find people that specialize in helping people find jobs that they're good at, capable of, and enjoy. Things like cheating within marriage, I would also turn into a criminal act. It is a binding contract. If you cannot remain loyal, get a fucking divorce. Like, it's not that hard to make a decision. You just have to make the right decisions. And I would change the way that those are handled so that if you are going to breach that contract, you would automatically lose custody of children if there's any. You would automatically lose any entitlement to 50-50 of anything that was obtained during the marriage. You would still retain anything you had prior to the marriage, but that's it. You would give up all your rights by breaching that contract. And if child care is needed, then that can be figured out for the child placement and training periods. to help you get on your feet. Our veterans serve us, and they serve this country to protect us, our future, everything we do, our livelihood. They deserve the greatest amount of respect for putting themselves on the line for our way of life. They're here to protect this country, protect its people, and protect everyone within it and everything within it. And like I mentioned before in the tax section, 15 years plus of service, they would be no income tax for the rest of their lives. If they're discharged for injury in the line of duty or other things that make it so that they can no longer work, for that sacrifice to the country, they would never pay income tax. If they have a family, their family's living expenses will be fully covered while they serve, and when possible, family can be located to as close as possible wherever they are based when they're not deployed in dangerous places. To protect the family interest, if a spouse cheats on an active military member and sufficient evidence is provided, they would be responsible to pay back all expenses of those living costs from the beginning, as well as they would lose out on custody of children. They would lose out on any income or anything like that, or anything acquired during the marriage period, just like I'd mentioned in the consequences for divorces before. And I want to make sure that they're looked after. Our veterans are the protectors of this country. And if they have medical expenses due to injury in the line of work that they do, I would want to make sure that their medical expenses are covered for the rest of their life, because they sacrifice themselves to protect us and protect our family. If something happens to them that they cannot work, then we would cover their family costs for a minimum of 5 years. And if they have kids, till minimal to those kids are old enough to work if they can no longer work themselves. So the families of our veterans would be protected as well, so that they do not end up in a state of despair because their parent is no longer able to work due to military injuries or whatever the circumstances may be. Labor costs are another thing that drives inflation. Labor should be looked at being capped, probably at, like, say, 2 times the average wage for the region. So if the average person is making $25 an hour, the labor charge for general labor should be no more than 50, possibly triple for, say, professional services. But that means things like an auto shop can't charge you $300 an hour labor for the repairs that they're doing on your vehicle. Instead, it would be controlled so that, yes, they can still make profit off the labor, but they're not hurting the individual person that is purchasing it. It will force those costs down, which then force down the cost of everything else. When it comes to things like construction, it will put a cap on how much they are charging for the labor to build things, such as renovating a house or building a house. And we can also look at reducing the size of a house, because houses have gotten significantly bigger over the years, way bigger than what we really need. If we normalize and bring the size of those houses down to something that is more acceptable, it can help us reduce some of those costs, especially if it ends up being half the size. Then it takes half the labor, and we can go from there. Health, food, and clothing. These are all very important things. Obviously, our medical is struggling, and it needs some help. And taxing the people more pay for it obviously will be covered under nationalizing our resources that I discussed earlier. But also being proactive towards our health, making changes to help prevent some of these things from occurring in the first place. The exposure to things like microplastics and chemicals and all those things that are in our everyday lives. A lot of that needs to be looked at a lot more thoroughly and corrected. Encouraging healthier foods in general and exercise. Even probably opening the doors to osteopath so that they can better understand our individual health and the individual needs and make it a common practice for people to see what's going on in your body so that the doctors can get a better understanding of how to help you. So that we can not just do triage to fix things when they go wrong, but be preventative to help you be healthier all the time and live a better life overall. With those regards, I would also look at things like chemicals that are used on our foods, our farming, the chemicals that are used in our clothing, because clothing is on our skin all day long, most of the time. And if you have chemicals in it that can absorb through your skin, that's going to end up in your body over time. If you have microplastics coming off of those clothing, that's going to end up in your body over time. So maybe we need to switch to something like hemp and other natural things that can be easily renewed. There's a lot of alternatives that have been used for a very long time, and a lot of them are proven much healthier than something made out of plastic. So I would look at finding ways to remove all of those things. Even when it comes to sprays, maybe we have to look at more natural options like pepper sprays for foods to keep away pests, or other natural options that degrade quickly into the environment. Can be done on a low-cost basis, so this way it's not going to cost the farmers a very large amount of money, but are still very effective at what they do. Essentially, if it's something that you shouldn't be consuming at the dinner table with your food, it probably shouldn't be going on your food at any point in time, unless it can be easily removed from off of those foods. If it's things that degrade and disappear off those foods and don't leave residues, sure, then that would be fine. But something that is going to stay long term, that needs to be drastically improved on. If it isn't natural, it shouldn't be going into us, essentially. As far as things like clothing, I mean, even if it's not a choice of making hemp, there's also things like wool and cotton and other renewable resources that we can use to make clothing with. Heck, even a rope can be made from hemp. They were for a very long time and they were very good. Crime has been slowly getting worse. Extremism and a lot of things that need to be looked at a lot more diligently. The streets used to be safe. Even myself growing up, at 10 years old, I could go downtown, I could hang out, go to the beach on my own. There was no crime necessarily happening in the open. There was still crime. It was a lot less. The streets were safe. You could go out at night and it wasn't an issue. Parents didn't have to worry if you're going to be able to make it home safe at night. Part of it comes from the influx of people that have come into our country that are not adapting to our culture. It has been an open floodgate and it needs to be looked at a lot more thoroughly. It needs to be controlled. It needs to be looked at the same way we used to, where we made sure that the people we are bringing into this country are going to bring value to this country. They're going to help build this nation up, and that they're going to adopt to our society, not try and change our society to be like the one that they ran away from in the first place. We had a culture in Canada that everyone had a very good understanding. There was very little issues between most different areas. And then I've seen a massive rise in violence, in hate crimes, in different ethnic groups that absolutely despise each other to a degree that I've never seen before. It needs to be reeled back in. The police need to be given the power and control, as well as somewhere to put these violent offenders. If they're in this country illegally, or if they came in here as an immigrant, send them back out, revoke their citizenship. If they are a Canadian citizen, well, we need to make sure our prisons have room for them. And we got to make sure that they're not being just put back on the street. In that light, judges that let violent offenders out or sex offenders back out that are doing these terrible, heinous crimes, I would hold the judges responsible for the people they put back on the street. If that judge doesn't keep them off those streets and they commit another crime, that judge should be penalized for that, whether it's losing their license to do law or ending up in that prison right beside them, right beside the people that they allowed to commit those violent crimes in the first place. It needs to be changed. And the amount of money that we are spending on people that are illegally entering our country and claiming asylum and claiming this and claiming that, that funding needs to go away. We're not here to run a charity. We need to be supporting our own people that are struggling to put food on their table. We shouldn't be paying for hotels and housing and all these other expenses when the people of our own country are struggling, when they're picking between bills. I even saw a young mother not too long ago that a small toy that was maybe $5, she had to tell her son to put it back because they couldn't afford it. And then at the till, she even had to put some of her food back because she couldn't afford all the things that she was buying to feed her family. I've been seeing this more and more firsthand, where parents can't afford to feed their children, where people are picking and choosing between their bills. So instead of spending all this money on other things that shouldn't be, it should be going to the people's pockets that deserve it, the people that have paid the taxes into it. And the ones that are making it dangerous need to be removed from the country, and that money then spent where it belongs. Our farmers are essential. They raise the food, they grow the food. They are the ones that allow us to survive. They are an essential part of this country. Our beef farmers, our chicken farmers, our turkey farmers, wheats and grains, and all the other things that we produce. We have farms all across this country that help bring foods to our table. The problem is the cost of that food is more expensive coming to our table than it is to going to other countries. Something is broken down with all of the red tape, the taxes, and everything else that falls in between. A recent case that I had heard about was a carrot farm in Ontario. The individual went and bought the carrots from their local grocery store, and they were marked up quite significantly compared to what we used to pay. And a 20-minute drive across the border to the US, that same bag of carrots from that same farm, even after the Canadian US exchange, was a fraction of the price. So why can they sell our product for a fraction of the price, but the people in our country are paying so much more? That is because of all the markup that is happening between the farms and the grocery store, between the distributors, between all the red tape, all the additional taxes, all the fuel surcharges and taxes. That needs to be fixed so that when our food is hitting our tables, we should be paying less than any other country. It should be cheaper to buy Canadian grown foods in Canada than it is to go to our neighbors and buy our same product. It shouldn't be cheaper to drive to the US and buy Canadian food than it is to buy it here locally. This is a problem. This is a huge problem with all of the taxations and regulations and everything else that we've imposed on our foods that are preventing us from having competitive pricing. Our farmers do well. I've seen the houses, I've seen the properties. It's everything that's coming afterwards that's hitting our tables. Because I've even bought directly from a farm, and it was significantly cheaper than anything I could buy anywhere else. Because I bought it at their wholesale price, the prices that they were selling to everyone else. And even if they had put a markup on it above beyond what they were regularly making, it still would have been nowhere close to a grocery store. They could have charged me double, and it still would have been half the price or less of what the grocery stores had. the systematic problems need to be routed out, and we need to be able to supply our country with affordable foods from our own country and not be overpaying for things grown in our own country. Interest. That is always a problem. I know that some people won't like the idea because of some of the other countries that have made this change. I would ban charging interest. So when you take a loan, when you owe money against something, instead of your debt growing bigger and bigger and bigger, one-time fees, and nothing ever greater than the current government taxes. So GST is 5%, so they cannot charge you more than 5% on that entire loan at all. That's it. If you don't pay off your debt, well, obviously they can charge late fees if you don't pay. They can charge um, other things like that. Like those, there would not be limitations on, but there would be definitely a limitation on what they can charge for interest rates because the growing debts that people have, they can't afford to keep up with them. Credit cards are killing our economy. The bank interest rates are killing our economy. There is too much profit being made on one side that the people are not able to keep up. This would be a huge burden off of the debts of our people, where if they don't have to charge interest on their debts, it'll make it much easier for them to pay them off. Because now they're not struggling to just keep up with just the minimum of the interest being added. They can actually get those debts to go down. They can actually get themselves free of those charges. And I would do the same thing with any kind of lending. So if someone's making a credit card purchase, the maximum that could ever be charged on that entire purchase is 5%. And that's on both sides. So whether you're charging the customer or the business, or even the business is moving the credit card charge to the customer side, you would be capped at a maximum of 5% total on that charge, so that the business is not getting gouged. And if they want, they can upfront forward that cost to the customer and make it visible and be like, hey, this is what the company is charging us. This is, if you agreed to buy this product, you're paying that 5% fee to the lender. If it's a debit card transactions, well, that's the same as cash. Should be treated same as cash. There should be no transaction fees on a debit card. If someone's buying something with a debit, exactly the same handling as cash. No fees ever on any side. Um, yeah. So I'm going to end this here for now. I have other things that I will talk about in future that I'm going to include in some additional posts that will come down the road that I'm going to leave out for the time being. But my goal is to make Canada better for everybody. Some changes might be drastic. Some things might need to be done to really change the way that this country is run and to make things profitable and to make it so that the people can be successful, our children can be successful, that people can afford homes again, afford the food on their tables, and not be struggling from bill to bill. We should be living in a nation that is prosperous. And I'm sure I'm not going to have a lot of traction off the get-go. This is coming from someone that, hey, I've been in the working industry, working on the boots on the ground, seen many different industries over time. And I am tired of seeing Canadians suffer, Canadians struggle. It's time for real change. So any Canadians willing to rally up behind me and make this a better country, I would be happy to have you stand beside me and improve this future to give everybody a better, brighter tomorrow. I'm going to be straight up. I am neither the left nor the right. I'm going to come from both sides. I believe that politics requires a true balance of both sides. Things go too far left, society has problems, it doesn't work. Things go too far right, society doesn't work right, and there's problems. There needs to be a balance, and there needs to be changes, and things need to shift back and forth time to time. But it cannot be allowed to have a polar shift in either direction too far, because that is when things start to fail or things become way too corrupt. You require a balance. So hopefully we can start a new political party, start something that is founded in the ideology of keeping a balanced nation, keeping things profitable for the people, for the companies, for everyone that makes this country great, and to try and remove the debts of this country and society so that we can prosper and grow together, united as one people on one land.